Um, my name is Stan, obviously. Some of you might know me. I think this is the fourth one of these I've done over the years. I really, really enjoy them for a number of reasons. Uh, and I mean specifically for the Texas crowd. I've also done a lot of on-site training in Texas in some of my previous jobs, and always look forward to coming down there and getting some of that good Texas hospitality. So thanks for having me again. Um, Today, we're going to talk about something that maybe not all of you have encountered. Maybe you have. This can be a very frustrating problem, not only for you, but for customers. And it's these little teeny things called clothes moths. So today, we're going to go over a little bit about what they are, how to look for them, the different types of things that they damage, which is really the key to figuring out what's going on with these things, because they can be really in a wide variety of things that we don't normally look for pest issues. And then we'll talk a little bit about what to do about them. So we're going to delve into these a little more, but on the left here you see one of the adults of the webbing clothes moth, and on the right is one of the larvae. So I want to start with this quote, and I'm just going to roll it in because this is really one of the most important things to keep in mind when you're dealing with not only clothes moths, but if you've had any cases of delusory parasitosis or some other things that are pretty sensitive. So let's look at this. On a global scale, clothes moths cause damages of hundreds of millions of dollars. Even more alarming is that they rob us of our family history and cultural heritage. When clothes moths feed on all these things that have special meaning to us, in most circumstances, these things are unrepairable and priceless. These things can really destroy a lot of family heirlooms, things that are just, as it says, they're absolutely priceless. Can't replace them and you can't repair them. So the thing to remember is this word. It's one of my favorite words. Empathy simply means being able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes, see things from their point of view. We should be doing that with all of our customers, but as I said, it's particularly true when it comes to clothes moths. So a little bit about our company. I work for Rose Pest Solutions. This is our founder, Solomon Rose. We are the oldest pest control company in the country. We started way back in 1860. About that time, the country was gearing up for a little thing called the Civil War. And in some of the army camps around Cincinnati, when they brought all these farm kids in from all over the place to start training them, they had outbreaks of body lice, which is what you see here in the bottom picture. Not only did they have body lice, but when you bring a bunch of people together like this and they start eating and creating garbage and things, well, you guessed it, you get rats. So Solomon Rose was contracted to see if he could do anything about this. Now, remember, this is back in 1860. We didn't have EPA, we didn't have FDA, we didn't have any of these regulatory agencies. People sort of made their own secret sauce, and he was no exception. He was successful in controlling the rats and controlling the body lice, and that's where we came from. So because that was the United States Army and a government contract, we take a little bit of a stretch and say that our very first customer was the 16th president of the United States. As I said, it's a little bit of a stretch. He probably did not know Solomon Rose. This is where we're located. We are confined to the upper Midwest. In case you're geographically challenged, this is Wisconsin right here. We have a branch here in Southeast Wisconsin. We have 6 located here in Illinois, including our corporate headquarters where the red dot is. And then we have 6 more branches in Indiana. One of those branches does a little bit of work here in southern Michigan. And then this branch way down here in southern Indiana is in New Albany, and they actually do most of their work across the border in Kentucky. So as some of you might recognize, that makes licensing and keeping up with regulations a little bit challenging. So I asked myself this question: why would people in Texas want to hear about clothes moths if they don't have them? So I got an answer, and it's going to roll in here. You're going to see some scientific names. I'll just let this come in. Okay, so don't worry about the scientific names. I tried to pronounce them and I didn't get them right, so I'm not going to try to pronounce them for you guys. Um, I highlighted in red here, though, that these are common in the state, and they attack things made from natural fibers. So keep that in mind. Natural fibers covers a lot of things, as you'll see when we get to that part. So I like to start these talks with some key points, just things for you to remember as we go through here. And then at the end, I will show you this exact same slide as kind of a review of what we talked about. So first of all, these things destroy fabric and other materials. They can be incredibly destructive. They feed exclusively on animal fibers. And I'm going to give you a list of what all that encompasses because there are going to be things on that list that you might not have thought of. The adults are very distinctive. This is a picture of the webbing clothes moth adult again. I'm going to have a little bit more to say about that in a minute, but they're very, very small. The wingspan is only about a half an inch, and they're very rarely seen for a number of reasons. Most of the time, what you're dealing with is the larval stage. And as a matter of fact, good job, Stan. The damage is done by the larval stage. Again, you see it one in the bottom right-hand picture here. The adults do not feed. They don't feed on anything. That's not unusual in the bug world. If you're familiar with crane flies, which are often mistaken for big giant mosquitoes, the adult crane flies don't feed. They don't even have any mouth parts. So with some of our insects that we deal with, all the nutrition that the adult needs is acquired in the larval stage and then just carried over into the adult stage. Imagine how much time you could save if you didn't have to eat. Their behavior is very secretive. I'm talking about the adults now. They're going to be in the deep, dark recesses of a customer's home. Unless you have a trained eye or you've worked with these quite a bit, they can be easily confused with grain moths, particularly the Indian meal moth, because they are sort of brownish, and there are a lot of little teeny brown moths that most of which we don't deal with. As I said earlier, the damage can be significant, and it can really, really, really be expensive, depending on, if we're talking about expensive rugs that people have acquired over the years in their travels from, places like the Middle East and things like that. If these moths get into those things, that's gonna be expensive. Uh, Whenever you're dealing with these, you always want to consider carpet beetles in your diagnosis. I put that there in your assessment, whatever you're doing in your inspection. Carpet beetles can do a lot of the same types of things. And for this particular pest, we're going to go through some control options later, but most of the stuff that we recommend or that we try to do is non-pesticidal. And that's for a number of reasons. So there are two main pests in this group, the webbing clothes moth, which we're going to talk mostly about. There's also one called a case-making moth, which I'll show you a picture of the larvae. But from a control point of view, basically the same things. All right, let's talk about the challenges with these things, because whenever we're dealing with a pest issue, if we are aware of the challenges ahead of time, sometimes you can fend these things off. We don't ever want to go in blindly to dealing with some type of a pest issue. So again, this is the adult moth, and there are three characteristics that you can look for, which will really help you identify these things. Again, remember, they're very small, but if you see right here on the head, where's my pointer? There it is. Right here on the head, there's the eyes. They have this nice, cute little golden tuft of hairs that's pretty easy to see. Next is the wings are held roof-like over the body, so they're in sort of a V, inverted V shape, not out to the side. And then the third thing are back here on the end of the wings, they have these really nice, this really nice tuft of gold back here on the end. Now, one thing to keep in mind, and this is true with many insects, is as nicely as you can see these characteristics here, if that insect is a little older or has been damaged somehow, sometimes some of those things are missing. But in this case, you can see all of them. This is the adult of the case-making clothes moth, just to show you it's a little bit different. You can still see the tuft of hair up here on the head, and the wings are held roof-like here, and but the hair on the back here on the back of the wings is not quite as prominent. So keep these things in mind. They not only prefer dark, undisturbed areas, the adults, but that's almost all where that's where you're going to find them. I've been on a few of these cases where every once in a while there would be an adult fluttering around, and the customers would see them, but not very often. You can easily confuse them with other pests, not only the damage, but the adult moths, as I said earlier, but the damage particularly can be confused, particularly with dermestids feeding on carpets and things like that. And there's our friend, the Indian meal moth. Now, if you've dealt with these at all, you would easily recognize that as the Indian meal moth, but novices who are dealing with this maybe for the first or second time might not be able to. I'm going to show you a list of the types of things they can get in here in a minute. Just remember, it's a very wide range. We have some pests that we deal with that are pretty specific in what they will feed on, not these things. As with many of the things that we deal with, bed bugs and cockroaches immediately come to mind. Customer cooperation is absolutely key, and their understanding of what you're trying to do is needed. I think that probably applies to everything that we do, but in this case, sometimes you have to ask them to clean out closets, cedar chests, sort through all kinds of clothing or other things that have been stored away. It can be pretty exhausting, and many times they don't want to do it. These problems can come from neighbors. Sometimes these things can migrate through high rises, multi-unit dwellings. If you've dealt with those types of facilities for other pests, you understand the headaches. These moths can travel through ductwork, through vents, and get into other people's places that way. The infestations sometimes are not obvious. As a matter of fact, they can be hidden. They can be in ductwork. They can be in pipes. They particularly can be in vents, air conditioning, heating vents. People do not clean those very often, as you likely know. And just in general, that's always a good place to look for certain pest problems like this one. If you suspect you might have mites, every once in a while, all kinds of things will be down in those vents. They usually travel person to person, and what I mean by that is we usually cart them around. The adults are very weak flyers. They don't like to come out. So these things are going to be carried around when we move, or when we maybe buy used clothing, stuff like that. That's how these are transported. So one more page of these things, and these are more recent. Our industry has gone more now to outside-only treatments to try to prevent things from getting in. The days of ringing the doorbell and going in with the sprayer and coating all the baseboards, hopefully, are in the past, although that's what some of us still do. This is kind of what has also led to the bed bug explosion that we experienced, whatever it was, 20 years ago or so now. Not regular treatments inside the house, which takes care of a lot of things. I stumbled onto this word, gentrification. I had to look it up. GENT generally refers to older people like me. So this is a picture from a neighborhood in Austin where they have undergone gentrification, and it basically just means converting older structures into newer structures, either for housing, restaurants, revitalization of a rundown area. And sometimes there can be pest issues in those older buildings, even if they're not torn down, that may come to light once you've gone through this process. This is a really, really important development for our industry. This whole thing of increased deliveries, either as you see on the bottom left here on this, looks like a front porch, I guess. Somebody wasn't home. I'm guessing that picture was staged. But if you look at the picture on the right, this international shipping um, is absolutely crazy. I mean, I can't imagine how many of those containers are on that ship. It's about 10 stories high. Um, but those can't all be inspected when they're coming into a country for pests. We have federal agencies that try to inspect a certain percentage of those things, but obviously that's going to be a major way that pests can get into our country. And here's the old standby, the pest arsenal that people accumulate under their sink that they're always very happy to show you. And they misuse it, and that can cause problems for a lot of things that we deal with. And then finally, there's been a resurgence of making things out of wool, particularly rugs, clothing, men's suits, as you see here. And the more of those types of things that you have in your home, the more at risk you're going to be to getting clothes moths. All right, a little bit about the life cycle. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. The female will lay 40 to 50 pinhead-sized eggs. Here's a picture of them. They don't really look like too much. They kind of look like flea eggs, I guess. But I just want to point out that these eggs are sticky, so they're pretty much going to stay where the female lays them. That's a little bit different than flea eggs, which are not sticky. They sort of fall off our domestic pets whenever they're walking around the house. But these are sticky and will remain in place. Those eggs will hatch in about 4 days to up to 3 weeks. The hatching time for almost all arthropod eggs is very, very temperature dependent. And most generally in our industry, the warmer it is and the higher humidity, the faster the life cycle is going to go. That's not always true, but it's a pretty good rule of thumb. So this is kind of interesting. The larval stage can last 35 days, 5 weeks, up to 2 years. And that is totally dependent on temperature and food. So these things can be around for a long time, doing a lot of damage, just trying to get through that larval stage. Okay, you've seen this picture a couple times already, but let's talk a little more about it. That larva is about a ½ an inch long. They're easy to see with the naked eye, and they're pretty recognizable. They're this creamy white brown here, but with a dark head capsule right there. And that's pretty obvious to see when you're looking at them. This is the larva of the case-making moth down here in the bottom right, and you can see this case right here that they spin. And it's generally the color of whatever the food is that they're eating. So that's the case-making moth, and that's all I'm really going to say specifically about that today. So these are the types of things that they look for to feed on in the larval stage. Remember, we said animal products, so wool, fur, silk, feathers, felt. We're going to talk a little bit about that. That really surprised me. Leather, and any type of thing that has a protein in it called keratin. And I'm going to show you a definition of a very long scientific definition of keratin in a couple minutes, but just to point out a couple of highlights. So that's what they're after. They're after this protein called keratin. So these are the types of things you want to keep in mind. And I'm going to show you a very useful checklist a little later on. If any of you are dealing with these things, I would recommend that you create your own checklist, not only to remind you what to look for, but to show to your customers to get them thinking about all the stuff that they may have stashed away somewhere in their house, apartment, or storage facilities that are causing these issues. So rugs, furs, blankets, upholstery, carpets, taxidermy, animals that people like to stuff and hang on their walls for whatever reason, which there's probably a lot of that down in Texas, I would guess. Brush bristles. These are on things like shaving brushes that you can buy overseas. A lot of times they have them at airports and things like that, the old time shaving brush. And then the other major area of these things where they can be a problem is animal carcasses, dead animals. Like a lot of things, they crawl into a void. They may be in an attic, a basement, and they go unnoticed. Um, Clothing moths can set up shop there. The larvae may wander off from the food to pupate. That's one of the ways that they get around. But as I said, the adult moths don't fly very much. So um, most of the time, I would say most of these things that I've worked on, the infestation has been pretty localized within a home, maybe just in one room or one closet even. So the adults emerge from that pupal case in about 8 days to 4 weeks. Again, pretty good range there. And again, it's temperature dependent. As I mentioned at the beginning, the adults don't feed and they are short-lived, about 1 month. Right up there with our mayflies, which are only a day or two. And I've already said they're very weak flyers. Okay, I don't expect you to read this. This is a dictionary definition of this protein called keratin. And I have highlighted the key things here that are really relative to us in the pest control industry. One, it's a protein. The next part there in red, it says they are resistant to degradation. What that means is they're not going to break down. They're going to be around for a long time in the environment. Some proteins will degrade pretty quickly, not these. And then the last part you see there in red, primary component of hair, nails, like fingernails, horns on animals, claws on a number of things that have claws, particularly if people have trophy birds mounted on their wall. Watch out for those claws. Animal hooves, quills, scales, feathers, and skin. So any of those types of animal products. I think I've probably said that enough now. So here's a few tips of when you're looking for these things. Sometimes they're incredibly hard to find. Sometimes you walk into the front living room and you take one look at the carpet and you say, they're going to be around the edge of this carpet. And you turn it over and there they are. Not always that easy, but sometimes you get lucky. So the usual tools here, flashlight. I hope you all have a really, really good flashlight. Um, the flashlight that's on your phone does not qualify. That's not good enough for some of the things that we deal with, particularly with clothes moths. If you don't have it, get yourself a good hand lens. I have a wonderful one that's about 30x, 30 times magnification, as you see here. Once you get trained at how to use it, it can be incredibly useful. And then just your eyes. We should all be trained to see what other people will overlook. So know what you're looking for and then take the time to look for it. Believe it or not, in our industry, sometimes people don't take the time to look as hard as they should. So we're going to go for these dark, undisturbed areas, and I've listed some ideas here: closets, any type of storage chest. And you might be thinking, oh, well, they have cedar storage chests, so they're safe. That's not the case. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Basements, particularly for people who, wait a minute. It says my battery's running low and I've got my computer plugged in. What's going on here? Hang on. There we go. Okay. Any place where they're going to store things. Some people are pretty neat and clean. Other people use their basements and their attics for anything, and you go in there and it looks like the inside of a goat's stomach. You're looking just for the larval damage. The adults are going to hide. If you start to disturb a closet that's got some wool sweaters and stuff in it, and you pull one or two out of those, the adults immediately are heading toward the back of the wall or under something where it's darker. And they will run, they'll hop, and they'll fly to get away from you, particularly if you have a bright flashlight. Any clothing or blankets that are regularly used, like a blanket that maybe in the wintertime You keep an extra wool blanket on the end of a bed or to throw over your lap while you're working at your computer. Those are low risk because they're being used all the time or they're disturbed regularly. The clothes moths will not go in there. Also, any areas where there's routine vacuuming, weekly cleaning or whatever it is every 2 weeks, areas that are routinely vacuumed are going to be at very low risk. Here are some areas that are at higher risk in a home. Anywhere around the edges or the undersides of rugs, but particularly around the edges. If you just pull that rug up just a little teeny bit and turn it over, you'll often see the larvae right underneath there. It's pretty cool when you find them. It gives you a sense of accomplishment. Underneath furniture, I'm going to show you a picture here in a minute. Underneath the legs of furniture, depending on what is on the bottom of those legs, those types of areas are at much higher risk. So you want to focus your efforts there. So here's that picture I was talking about. Let's talk about the high risk areas here. This looks like kind of a standard type of living room. Let's start up here. We've got this upholstered furniture. It looks like it's going to have some dark recesses here, all along here. You can see that. Those would be areas that would be at high risk. The carpeting also, look here, it's back up underneath the furniture. The edge of the carpet is not exposed. So that's going to be a nice dark area that probably is rarely disturbed, particularly by vacuuming or unless the furniture is moved occasionally, which probably doesn't happen. The other area I want to point out here is this table. It's got 4 legs, like a lot of tables do, but a lot of times there are felt pads underneath these table legs to keep it from scratching floors. Sometimes those pads are made out of animal products. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, but it's one of the more interesting areas where you might find these. And I'll talk about one situation here in a minute that is something I guarantee you wouldn't have thought of with these things. There's those vents and ducts. Here you go. This is about what most of them look like. It's really, really a good idea to occasionally pay to have these things cleaned out. Every time my wife and I have moved 10 times because of my Navy experience, one of the first things we did in every one of our homes is have these ducts cleaned out because they can really build up a lot of crap. And there's a lot of organic debris in there. There may be pet fur, human hair. That's all going to be food for the larval stage of these clothes moths. Attics and chimneys, that's mostly perhaps a dead animal, and wall voids for the same reason. So think about those. Long-term storage areas. Sometimes people have a storage locker someplace, and they may occasionally go. Sometimes what people do, pardon me, boo boo boo. They may have like summer clothing, winter clothing, and they may store it somewhere away from their home, and they'll periodically go and get that stuff and bring it back into their house. That's a really, really good way to bring in clothing moths. So think about long-term storage areas that may not be on site. And then for actual clothing itself, think about the seams, any folds and creases. Those are going to be the high-risk areas. You see a seam here in this, whatever this is, it looks like maybe I don't know what that is. But if you can just pull those seams up just a little bit, sometimes you can, and look in there, that's where you're going to find these things. All right, I've got just a few pictures here of damage, sort of some of the classic things that you want to look for. This looks like a rug, and you can see a large area of this has been consumed probably over a fairly long period of time. That's pretty obvious. Sometimes it's not that obvious, particularly if it's on the underside of the rug. Holes in wool garments, not uncommon. You may have seen these. Most of us probably have some type of a hole in older sweaters, but wool sweaters in particular. You pull the sweaters out from the closet and suddenly you've got holes in them and you have no idea how it happened. This is some type of a hat. I'm not sure what this is made out of that they would want to feed on it, but they have destroyed almost the whole brim there of the hat. And then finally, wall hangings, whether they are rugs that people put on walls or just decorative wall hangings. And it's pretty obvious here in the yellow what's going on. Sometimes people don't notice that. I mean, you would think if this were hanging on the wall, that people would see it right away and want to do something because it takes some time for this damage to develop. But just keep in mind, this could be something that they had in storage for 20 years over some moves, and they decided to finally get it out and put it up, and it looks like that. So that's always kind of a good question to ask. Is this something that you had in storage or that you recently bought into the home and you noticed this damage? All right, I'm going to just mention briefly here a couple of companies. I'm not promoting one or the other. I just want to mention them to you because they are a good resource for dealing with clothing moths. They have very good technical information on their websites. As I said at the beginning, this might be new to you, and so it's always good to have a resource to go to. The first company is called Insects Limited. They're actually, I'm in Indianapolis. Their headquarters is about 20 minutes from where I'm sitting. There's their new building. They specialize in traps and lures, specific lures, species-specific lures. I'll show you one here in a minute. And as I said, a lot of other technical information, and they have a research and development facility. So they do a lot of their own research and development. The other company that I'm aware of, and these are the two big ones in the country, it's called Tracy. You may have heard of that one. I think they're headquartered in Oklahoma. I'm not positive, but they're somewhere down a little closer to you. So Insects Limited and Tracy, I would point you in those directions. Okay, way back when I mentioned checklist. I'm not going to read all these, but let's just walk through this. And I would tell you again, this is from Insects Limited, by the way. I don't know if Tracy has one, they probably do. But this is very thorough, and there's a lot of things on here that you might not think of, and certainly your customer would not think of. The first few here have to do with wool. Those are pretty obvious. There's that taxidermy. The upholstered furniture we mentioned, feather or down comforters, pillows and jackets. Those are often kept in storage. Let's say somebody used to live up north and they used a lot of down blankets and they up and decide to move to Florida, but they want to keep those comforters. And so they put them in storage or they just wad them up and put them in their attic. Those are at high risk. Notice here, feathers incorporated into artwork, Native American art. I'm going to show you a picture of that. That's one I would not have thought of. Check out this one, 19th century, and it's specific 19th century, human hair art or jewelry. Apparently back in that time period, it was a big deal to, particularly to keep hair from your loved ones when they had passed on, to snip a lock of it and then make some art of it, make art out of it. And I actually have a picture of one here to show you. Any accumulation of dead insects, that would be primarily in basements, maybe in attics if they have windows. Here's this felt. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but look at this one right here. Piano hammer felt. Inside of piano, this is the one that I mentioned that probably nobody would have thought of. But inside pianos where the hammers are on the strings, they put a little piece of felt in there to enhance the sound. And I have not personally worked on any of those, but I know a couple of people that have. And as you might imagine, they looked and looked and looked and looked and looked and looked and could not find the source until finally one time when they came back, they happened to open the piano and some adult moths were in there and flew around. So that's how they caught on to that. All right, let's look at a couple pictures. Here's one of these Native American artwork things. If you go to gift shops of places that specialize in Native American things, you'll often find these. That's a smorgasbord for clothing moths as well as dermestids. Here's some of these felt pads. I know we have some of these on the legs of our chairs because we have wooden floors and we don't want to, it's noisy when you slide around and it scratches the floor. So the larvae can get in here and feed on those. There's another style of them. And then finally, this is the 19th century human hair art. It's not very distinctive, but all of these little things in here are curls of hair from different family members. So, wow. I don't think I would want to do that, but I guess some people do. And then accumulation of dead insects, obviously. There's a lot of animal product in there. All right. We're doing well on time. So I've got, I think, 3 slides here just to mention different aspects of control. This is really integrated pest management, probably at its finest, because pesticides are almost the last resort with these things. And there's also a significant emotional component when dealing with your customers when you're talking about control of these things that I'll get to in a minute. So one of the things that you can do is get some of these traps from the companies that I mentioned. I just happen to be showing Insects Limited here. They have a specific sex pheromone that will attract the males. We have a lot of that, particularly for our stored products pests. And these can be used for monitoring, whether you're dealing in a warehouse maybe that specializes in, let's say, wool rugs, or in a customer's home and you're trying to pin down the source of the infestation, or early detection. These monitors can be useful for that. And the companies provide guidelines of, depending on how big the space is, how many you might need, and they will also provide you with some technical information about how to use them. And one of the things that they have come up with this is a lure right here. It's called a bullet lure, and you can see why. Some of them are very, very specific for a certain pest. Some of them are more general for, particularly for stored products. Pardon me, I'm losing my voice and I got 2 more of these to do today. Sometimes the infested items just need to be sealed in plastic. Smaller items, clothing and things like that. And then this is the discussion you have to have. As I said at the beginning, a lot of times these things have a very high either dollar value, even though they're small, or they have a very high sentimental value. And sometimes the customer just has to make the decision to discard some of these things. Otherwise, if they keep them, they're going to risk further infestation, or if they give them away, that's another issue. So sometimes they just have to discard them. I've had that discussion with 2 customers in my career about their very expensive rugs, and they did not want to hear that they had to get rid of those rugs, but one of them decided to and the other one did not. Vacuum, vacuum, vacuum. If you're not over vacuuming, you're not vacuuming enough for these things. Vacuuming can pick up those eggs. It will dislodge the eggs, and obviously you're going to get the larvae, and you're going to get the pupae. Remember, if you're dealing with rugs, you want to fold back the edge of the rug and get under there and vacuum. Maybe flip the rug over and particularly vacuum the edges. So regular vacuuming in these areas that are relatively undisturbed. Remember, we said earlier that if an area is vacuumed regularly, you don't have to worry about it too much. But let's say you have a carpeted basement and you've been storing some things down there and you find out that, or you suspect that's where the infestation is, you want to get in there and hit it big time. Okay, page 2, we're going to talk about a few other things here. I was in the Navy for 24 years, so I wanted to talk about uniforms. Not really. I've thrown all mine away. These are the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Those uniforms are oftentimes made of wool. So what the customer can sometimes do is have things professionally dry cleaned, particularly jackets, suits, women's business types of suits. Dry cleaning will help with this problem. Steam cleaning is some things that are recommended. Unfortunately, particularly if you have like a thicker rug or a thicker jacket or something, the steam may not completely penetrate there. So that's something to think about. Professional cleaning can also be done, although for sizable rugs, it's very, very, very expensive. Professional cleaning can also be done for furs. Furs have a lot of oils and sweat that they get from us on them, and those can be professional clean. But just advise your customers that that can be pretty expensive. Um, as with some of our other pests, just hot laundering in the dryer. You don't even need to wash the material first. This also works for bed bugs and some other things. Usually if you put the dryer on the hottest cycle, run it for about 30 minutes, it will kill all the life stages. Um, the bottom right picture here, this is a market. I forget where this was. It was overseas somewhere, I think. And they're selling obviously these decorative rugs or whatever these are. And just having them hanging out like this in the sun will prevent or kill any of the clothes moths that are in it. So a lot of times in the summertime, people like to beat their rugs to get the dust out of them and hang them out on the deck or something like that. That can help. Cold can also be used. Either in long-term storage for valuables. That's what you see here on the left-hand side. But then for smaller objects, this is not a real dog. Happens to be a stuffed animal. They wouldn't put a real dog in the freezer, I don't think. You can wrap them in plastic like this and put them in the freezer for a certain period of time. And I don't have the exact time. I think it depends on the size of the objects. And it will kill the stages of the clothes moth. Okay, page 3. After the treatment, obviously you want to go in and there's going to be a lot of webbing around. That is why they're called the webbing clothes moth, which is very clever. There may be other debris from the larvae feeding. That all needs to be cleaned up. This is one of those old time shaving brushes that you see overseas a lot. I used to see these a lot when I would travel. And people like to buy these as little souvenirs. This is made out of animal product. And if you've got clothes moths living in that thing, you may not detect them right away. Obviously, as with most inspections, you want to look around and make sure there aren't any bird or rodent nests, either obviously out like this one near a window or dryer vents, vents leading out from bathrooms, things like that. Sometimes there will be a nest in there and the bird will have left, but the clothes moths can live on. Just a little bit about pesticides. Obviously, read the label. You're talking about sometimes treating fabric, which can stain. You see a obvious picture of that here. That's going to cost you money, and that's going to piss off your customers if you do that. So we talk about reading the labels, all that stuff, but you want to be particularly careful for this. I would even recommend that you call one of the distributors or a technical specialist and tell them what you're thinking about doing and get their opinion of it, or even calling the manufacturer of the material. They'll know whether it's going to do any damage to the fabric because they'll have had it happen. You won't be the first ones. So these are kind of a given. Obviously, once you locate the pest, you can do some spot treatments. The places to look for, again, around the edges of the rugs and carpets. But also, as you see in this picture here, if you can clean out a room and get your treatment right along that floor wall junction, a lot of times these things are going to get just right underneath that edge. They're looking to get any edge, and I mean that figuratively as well as literally. They're looking to get an edge. We've talked about this under furniture, closet floors. Watch out for mothballs. It is a false sense of security for people to put mothballs in their closets, in their cedar closets, in their storage chests. Sometimes they'll have hanging garments in plastic bags and they'll throw a few mothballs in there, or sometimes it's cedar planks. Those are not going to be reliable. The seals are generally insufficient. A lot of times the zipper on one of those storage plastic bags might be broken or left a little bit unzipped. The seals just aren't going to be good enough in a place like this to maintain the concentration of mothballs or anything like that. So that really isn't a very good recommendation to make. Plus, it's really not very good to be breathing that stuff in, quite honestly, if you look it up. All right. So that's what I have for you today. We're going to go back and go over the key points slide again. I know we talked about a lot of stuff. It's a complicated topic, difficult to deal with, but it is really, really rewarding when you find these things. So let's just review these. They're going to destroy fabric. They feed exclusively on animal fibers. And you now have a better idea of what all that encompasses. The adults are very distinctive. Remember, they have that gold tuft on the head. They have the fringe on the back of the wings, and their wings are folded roof-like over their body, very small. The damage is done by the larval stage only. The adults don't feed. Customers will get kind of wigged out when they see the adults flying around, but sometimes it helps a little bit to tell them that they're not going to do any damage, except they're still laying eggs. But it's important for your customers to know that the moths are not what's eating the things and causing the damage. You got to look for these places, look for these in places that are very dark and secretive. That's where they're going to be. Don't confuse them with other moths. Significant and expensive damage, I can't stress that enough, particularly if it's family heirlooms. People just aren't going to want to hear some of the advice that you're going to give them, but you have to be, you have to give them that tough love in pest control. Think about other pests, particularly carpet beetles. You don't want to confuse them because you would control them in different ways. You're going to use non-pesticidal methods. That's a good thing to explain to the customer right up front. Customers have this mindset of, well, I'll call the pest control company and they're going to come in and just spray, and my problem will go away. Not in this case. So it's not a bad idea to start with that up front. We have a number of options we can do before we have to use pesticides, et cetera. Sometimes that provides a little level of comfort. And there's those two different moths. So that's my information there on the left. Even though I'm not in Texas, I'm happy to talk to you or answer any emails. My specialty happens to be mosquitoes, which I've talked a lot about in Texas because you guys are overrun with Asian tiger mosquitoes and the yellow fever mosquito down there. So feel free to contact me if I can help you out at all. I have a technical specialist on the right here, Allison Beach. She's been with us just a year out of school from Purdue. She's also available. Solomon Rose here in the middle is not, he's a what do you call it? He's a ex officio member of our technical team, even though he's been gone for quite some time. So that's what I got, and I'm sticking to it. And I have stopped sharing, so you get my ugly mug again. And Tammy and Jason, that is it.
Well, Dr. Cope, Travis asked, what is the difference in treatment between clothes moths and carpet beetles?
I would have to, the main thing about carpet beetles, I can't tell you the exact difference in treatment. I don't have labels sitting here in front of me. The main thing you have to be careful of with carpet beetles is the larvae have spines on them that if you happen to ingest those, they can cause a lot of gastrointestinal illness. I'm not exactly up on the different things that you would do, so I apologize. I don't have that information right now. Sorry.
Can they reach out to you, or could you get emails and if you find that out for them, if that's possible?
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. I'll send Travis I'll send you Travis's email, and then y'all could communicate further after this.
The other thing that they can do, and I do this a lot, is a lot of universities have one-page publications on these things. I know that Texas Tech has some, Texas A&M has a lot. If he were just to Google carpet beetle treatment, Texas A&M, you can find a very, very good one-page fact sheet that'll detail the things to do there. They don't recommend products, but they'll tell you what needs to be done.
Okay.